Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policy makers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today we have such guest. His name is Lash Green. Lash Green is the Director for the Diversity Department and Office of Civil Rights for the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey. Lash is going to discuss to us about the opportunities available at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Let's meet Lash. Mr. Green, thank you, sir. Thank you so much for taking time today to come here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And really appreciate it. You all the way coming from New Jersey and taking a time off. I definitely, on behalf of the viewers, I want to thank you for that.
Okay.
And the information you will provide today definitely is going to help a lot of viewers here.
I hope so.
So thank you so much for coming again. So, Mr. Green, we always normally what we do, you're the director for business, diversity and civil rights for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. And we would like to go over your background first.
Okay.
So please give us your background.
Okay. Well, I started out many years ago doing transportation planning for a small consultant firm. And I moved on from there to public sector work, first in the employment arena, employment training, private industry councils at that time. And then from there on to the Port Authority, worked there in human resources. It's a big agency, you get opportunity to move around and do different things. And then later in this predecessor to this office where I am now, business and job opportunity, and now I'm the director of the combined program, business diversity and civil rights.
So you've been there for a long time in the Port Authority?
Over 25 years.
Over 25 years? Wow, and you plan to retire?
Long time. It's coming.
So you love that so much.
It's been a great experience there. As I said, it's a very diverse agency in terms of the opportunities that it presents, both internally and as well as for businesses who are looking to work with the agency.
Wow, yeah. So I mean, before that, you just you said you worked at a private company and transportation planning, and that's how you got interested in transportation, or you had a business educational background.
The education, yes, I got a degree in transportation planning from Harvard, and I moved on to that firm right out of school.
Harvard University.
Yes, and from there we. Always had the interest in transportation. That's what attracted me to the Port Authority, although I haven't worked directly in the transportation planning, but the position that I have actually has given me quite a bit of exposure to all the different lines of business at the Port Authority.
Okay, so right after graduation you went to this small company.
Yes.
And then you started interested in transportation. So let me start with describe your program at the Port Authority for the women and minority-owned business. The viewers of this show is mostly minority businesses and women-owned businesses, right? Certified.
Okay.
So please go over the program.
Sure. Port Authority has a very comprehensive program. Since we have so many different lines of business, we have the airports, we have the tunnels and bridges, we have a rail system, we operate ports, and of course, in recent years we've been redeveloping the World Trade Center, so we have that presence in real estate business. So there's many diverse opportunities for businesses, and as a result we have a diverse and comprehensive program. We do our own certifications, but at the same time we have reciprocal relationships with the New York City and with New York State. And then where federal contracts are concerned, we are in a partnership with the certifying agencies, again in New York DOT, the MTA, Niagara Frontier on the New York side. On our New Jersey side, since we are a bi-state agency, we have partnership with New Jersey Transit and with New Jersey DOT. So a firm that wants to do business with the any of those agencies really can get a certification with the Port Authority and then be eligible pretty much on both sides of the river.
Oh.
So we do a lot of outreach. I mentioned to you we had a program yesterday, Competitive Edge. Over 500 people, I believe, were in attendance. And we, at these outreach events, will have a table. We will market what we do in my shop as well as what some of the opportunities are around the agency. So those are that's guess the primary way that we get people to know about what we do, and of course this opportunity here today. In addition, we will do our own events that are targeting areas in the Port Authority where we frequently have business opportunities, and we will bring in private companies that do work with us, some of the larger ones, to network with some of the smaller minority-owned firms, because we do both direct awards and then we do the subcontract awards. So these networking events, which focus on primarily professional services. We do one for construction services, and then we will do another one for purchase of goods and supplies, things like that. And we try to do one or two of those a year, and that's where firms can come and learn about the Port Authority, because we will have representatives from many times our different business areas, procurement, engineering, the architecture and design group, who will talk about how do you do business with the Port Authority. And then we will have those private companies who are there, and basically they will have representatives at their table who will talk about their companies and how you can do business with them. And that works well for them as well as for us, because they're generally, if they get a prime contract with us, it will have goals in it. And they need to know who's out there that can help them meet those goals. So it works for them, it works for us.
How much business does Port Authority do? About so many different areas that you mentioned: airport, tunnels, ports, real estate. So I'm sure that it's a huge budget.
It's a large budget. Right now we are, I think, in our second or third year of a $27 billion capital
$27 billion
program. I don't have the annual number right now offhand, but I'm sure it's over $1 billion annually. We get involved in many large projects, operating major facilities such as LaGuardia and Kennedy Airport in New York. On the New Jersey side, it's the Newark Liberty. We have a Teterboro Airport, Stewart Airport. And then we have the bridges and tunnels between New York and New Jersey. So that's the Lincoln and Holland tunnels, with George Washington Bridge, Goethals and Bayonne Bridge, which we had talked about earlier. We're raising the Bayonne Bridge and building a new Goethals Bridge. And the George Washington, we're really going through repairs that will ultimately make that a new bridge. So that $27 billion, it sounds like a lot. It is a lot, but we have it committed to some really large important projects in the region.
This large project, as whatever knowledge I have, is that there are only few companies who can do all these projects, because they're large projects, right? And obviously, they get the prime contract. So the people who are minority and women-owned businesses, they have a lot of potential subcontracting opportunity with them, right? So how do they, before we go on certification and all that, how do they reach? Let's say, you said networking event, which is one event, one way, right? But is there any other way that one can reach out?
Yeah. Well, there are a couple of ways. On our website, and it's Port Authority of New York and New Jersey website, PANYNJ.gov. Firms can go to that website, and there's a host of information that they can get there on the business opportunities, and that would be the tab that they would click on. But there they'll be able to see, for example, just yesterday I think, a revision to our construction program came out. So there's a link at that site where they can go and see what contract opportunities are going to be coming up in the third and fourth quarter of this year. They will be able to see the bids and advertisements and who wins. So that's one way they can, when they see who is the winner, they can go directly to those companies to look for opportunity. And the majority of the time, those contracts are going to have goals in them, and those companies will be looking for firms to help meet those goals. Another way on some of the really large projects that you're referring to, something like the Gothels or the Bayonne or some of the airport projects, we will have in the RFPs that go out to them, requesting them to have their liaison officers, MWBE liaisons officers, who will then work closely with my office. We will arrange with them sometimes where they will have events, and we're more or less the guests there. And they will invite people from the local communities as well as MWBEs at large to come in and hear from them the opportunities that they're going to have on those big projects.
The starting point is the certification, right? One has to be certified by the Port Authority or the affiliated agencies in order to do business as a MB, WMB, right? And that process is, can you tell us, how that, is it on your website, is it like?
Yes. First of all, the Port Authority, we will do certification in a number of different areas. We will do a small business certification. We will do the minority and women-owned business certification. We'll do a DBE certification for construction purposes on federal contracts. And then there's another for airport concessions that we also do. So I don't think any other agency does that array of certifications. And the thing is, those certifications are all connected to business opportunities. So when a firm comes in, we encourage them to, for as many certifications that you qualify for, go ahead and get them, because they are associated with business opportunities. The process itself, because we're doing and offering, usually the firms that come in are going to want 2 or 3 of those. So the process can be lengthy. We try to do them within 90 days. Frequently we do exceed that, but it's, I think, well worth the wait for firms to complete that process and then take advantage of the opportunies.
It's an investment, basically.
Excuse me?
It's an investment for the firms.
It is.
Because it's a huge opportunity there.
It is. Again, at this Competitive Edge event, I like to go out to these events whenever I can, because I will see firms that have been certified with us, working with us, have expanded and now work with other agencies. And over the years, I think these firms would, I mean, I've heard it directly from them. They really value the certification. They value being in the programs that we have, and sometimes reluctant to leave them because there are graduation criteria in many agencies. We don't have one yet, but we're probably moving in that direction.
Yeah, one thing I tell you, Mr. Green, that we are also, I run an IT business for 29 years, and we are also certified minority-owned business, with the state of New York and with Port Authority, and the certification helps tremendously, and I can attest to that. That it definitely helps in getting your business, move forward, and there will be a lot of opportunities. And from a small business, a minority-owned business, the challenge is, okay, where is the first one? Where do I get the first contract? Let's say, for example, if someone is doing a lot of work at commercial, now when they come to Port Authority, it's different.
Yes, and we can. There are some things that we do a little differently than the other agencies to help with that first opportunity.
Okay.
One of them is what we call a price preference. And this we needed, I'm not going to go into all the details, but we needed to have conducted a disparity study to have the ability to do that. And the price preference basically gives to a small business a 5% price preference over the next lowest bidder.
Okay.
and to a minority or women-owned firm, a 10% preference over the next lowest bidder. That's
Wow.
in simplest terms. And so that enables us to sort of level the playing field a little bit with some of the larger companies, given that kind of a break. The smaller companies don't have the same economies of scale as some of the large firms. And that's the idea behind that, helping them get that first opportunity there. On the construction side, we have a small business program. And this small business program, I think we call it a small contracts program. But what it does is it dedicates contracts above $200,000 up to $1 million to minority women and small contractors first. So this program is just getting underway, but we've dedicated some contracts. Hopefully it takes off. We get the number of bids, because it's important that once we start dedicating contracts to a select group, that we get a sufficient number of bids to make it worthwhile, because we're still looking for them to be competitive and give us the best price. So if we don't get enough bids to feel that we got a competitive process going, then it's difficult to keep a program like that running.
So 200,000 to million, that we are talking about a prime contract.
Those
The
are
Port Authority.
prime direct awards with port
Direct
authorities.
awards from port, and then these are all like a large contract divided into smaller pieces, or how do you do that?
It can be a variety. Most of our work, the prime work, goes out to general contracts on the construction side. On the we don't do a lot of the individual trade type awards. On professional services, we do direct awards, architectural, engineering awards. We have another program for because we have these different facilities, the janitorial maintenance is a big issue for us. Cleaning the airports, our PATH stations, and so forth. That's a very successful program. It's an SBE, small business program. And basically most of our facilities now are cleaned by companies that are in that program.
So we were talking about the program, program for WMBs, program for SDPs or DBEs rather. So obviously, when you use DBE certification, when you WMB certification, a firm, it depends upon the funding source.
Yes.
Correct. So if the funding comes from a federal government, then obviously it's a DBE certification that is useful.
Right.
Right? Is that?
That's correct, and that's why, as I mentioned earlier, that we do the multiple certifications, and we encourage businesses that come to us to get multiple certifications, because if it is a project that we receive federal dollars, then we will comply with the federal program and use only firms that are certified disadvantaged business enterprise on those projects. So if a firm comes in and only has our MBE or WBE certification, then they're going to have to go online and wait to get the DBE certification. It creates at that point some extra work for us, extra work for the company, and may delay or even have them miss a business opportunity. So it's important for them to get all the certifications up front. And I can say right now we do have some key projects that we have federal money for, that we are utilizing DBEs, and I think in each case we're still working toward the goals on those contracts. So as a result of the Hurricane Sandy, the storm, we did get federal money to help repair our path primarily, as well as some World Trade Center damage that was done, and we're still issuing contracts to repair that. The Goethals Bridge that I mentioned earlier, we get federal funds for that, and they are utilizing the DBE goal. So there's a lot of opportunity on the federal side.
How does a person know whether it's a federal funding or it's a state funding?
When the RFPs go out.
Right.
It will be in there which goal, which certification is being required.
Okay.
So when I'm not sure that the small company would have access to the RFP necessarily, but when the prime contractor issues requests to firms to participate, they will specify that it's a DBE certification or an MOW.
Let's talk about the goals. What are the goals for DBE versus WMB?
The way we implement goals at the Port Authority, it's on a contract by contract basis.
Okay.
So we have fully embraced the governor's goal of 30%, but we get there on a contract by contract basis. So some contracts will permit us to put in a larger goal. We've had them over 30%. Many contracts, the goal will be smaller. Let's say on the Goethals Bridge, which is one that's a federally funded one, the goal is 10%. That's a difficult area for us as an agency to attract, or the prime to attract the qualified MWB firms to do that kind of work. So the goal is smaller. In fact, many of the Port Authority projects are very complex, and the good thing is they're, as we were talking earlier, they are large. So dollar-wise, there's going to be a good deal of contract dollars to award to MWBEs, but some of the complexities might prevent that from being a very high goal.
So DBE goal is 10%. Is that?
Well, on that, as I said, on a contract by contract basis,
Contract by contract
that
basis.
contract has 10%. I think our Sandy projects, the contract was 16 or 17%. Again, it varies by project.
How it is determined? How is it determined that, whether 10% or 16%?
Yeah, it's the work and the availability within our pool. So if we have a contract, and I'll give you some examples that are positive, contract that has electrical, mechanical, that if there are large percentages of that work in the contract, we happen to have a large number of certified minority and women-owned firms in those categories, so you're going to see a higher goal. On the other end is we operate the ports, as I mentioned, and we do dredging of the ports. That's an area where I think maybe there are only 3 or 4 large companies nationally that can dredge the harbors in the New York area. So we will have a very low goal on contracts. In fact, it's really a good faith effort on the part of those companies to help us attract and get M&Ws on that. So those are the extremes. But again, we generate a lot of contract dollars. We last year awarded or had a spend with MNWBEs of over $500 million, which is probably the top for any transportation agency in the region. And who knows, I don't know what they do outside of the region, but it's a significant number of dollars going into the hands of minority and women-owned contractors. And the other thing that we're doing is we're looking at all areas within the agency for participation. So I mentioned the professional services and the janitorial maintenance program that does the maintenance of our facilities. Of course, the construction is the big one. But we try to get firms involved in technology services, purchases of small goods and supplies. Basically anything that's going out, we're looking at it to get minority and women participation. A growing area for us right now related to the airports as well as World Trade Center is when our tenants are moving into those facilities, they also comply with the Port Authority policy to utilize minority and women-owned businesses, and we're beginning to get increased participation that way.
Is that right?
So that's another opportunity for firms that they might not look to right away, but those tenants are required to meet our goals as well.
So you're saying that if I rent a space over there at the Port Authority, I have to comply with 30% goal?
Well, again, it's
I mean,
what you're doing.
Whatever I procure
Right,
services.
and again, we don't just slap a 30% or any percent
Right, yeah.
on.
I mean,
But if you have that kind of opportunity, and because what we do is we work with on the construction side, our engineering department,
Right.
to do an analysis of the contract to see exactly what's there to be done. And then we utilize our database to say, okay, we have sufficient number of firms to support 20% goal, 15% goal,
Right.
whatever. Mhm.
So let me ask you this now. You mentioned that some of the areas where it's not easy to find a WMBE,
Mhm.
right? So do you have any mentor prodigy program
Yes.
that can help any MBEs or WBEs?
Yes, we do. There are some, our program works like this. Quite a few years ago, we decided that basically we have the same, and it's a construction-based program. We have many of the same large prime contractors bidding and doing work with the Port Authority over and over and over again.
Right.
And we thought, well, we should contact them and have them support us, our minority and women-owned businesses,
Right.
by mentoring them.
Right.
In many cases, they'll ultimately use them as a subcontractor, although that was not a requirement of the program. We really wanted them to mentor them, teach them how their bidding may be off, how their estimating might be improved. About probably one of the more critical things, submitting their paperwork to the Port Authority or another agency correctly so that they can get paid on time. So all of those steps, they go through in the mentor protege program. It's a relatively small, I think right now we may have somewhere between 15 and 20 firms in that program. But they get some valuable experience there. They can bid on Port Authority contracts. They can bid with other agencies with the assistance of that mentor.
Funding, right? Normally, that's a big challenge for the small MBEs and WBEs. So is there any assistance on funding side or anything that you make prime contractor? Like, for example, many times, when we work with a prime contractor, the client says we got to get paid in certain reasonable time.
Right. We do have language in our contracts that I believe it's seven after the prime gets paid, 7 business days is when we want the subcontractors to get paid. My office, because that doesn't always get met, my office will work with our contracting department when an issue comes up where someone is not getting paid to address it and try to resolve it.
Now, most of the dollar that goes into a larger contract, as I see that, is that a right statement?
Most of the Port Authority dollars go into
larger contracts.
Well,
am I making the right statement?
I think from one perspective that's true.
That's
but
true.
What I guess it doesn't capture is the fact that we have we have many facilities, so we have a very large operations and maintenance program all the time. State of good repair is what it's referred to. So we're always repairing facilities. So while the capital dollars are there for the big projects on an annual basis, and if someone goes and downloads that construction program that I mentioned, they're going to see a lot of smaller contracts that are dedicated to that state of good repair.
Okay. So larger contract, normally, if we talk about the larger contract, that's like one company gets the awarded, and then they have a goal to reach.
Yes.
And normally, my business experience is that normally everybody's always like work with somebody. Prior relationships, right? To break into that, wouldn't that be a good idea, that if you put something that you have to have at least 1 or 2 new contractors?
Yeah, it works. I kind of argue for it both ways, because one of the things that I like to see, as we talked about earlier, is firms grow.
Exactly.
And if you are good enough to establish a relationship with one of these primes where they will use you over and over and over again, I think that's great because now your firm is going to grow.
Right.
But at the same time, we are certifying new firms every day.
Exactly.
And we need to have opportunities for those firms as well. So I'm on both sides. I want to see those firms that are there continue to work and grow, but we're also pushing to get new firms in as well.
So that's when your term limit comes, that number of years you get certified and then you graduate.
Well, you don't graduate from being a minority or woman-owned business. What we would look to do is there are some of the benefits that I mentioned earlier, say the price preference or a set-aside contract. You would graduate and not be eligible for those kinds of things.
Oh, okay. So you still will be in the database and still primes can use you.
Right.
Only the advantages, extra advantages, you don't get it.
Yeah, and as I said, we're working on this. Even because I said we would look at that different criteria for how to implement it. Because for that as well, we hear things on both sides.
Right.
Our agency, as we talk, we put out a lot of very large contracts. So if I'm going to graduate someone from the program, are there going to be sufficient contracts for that firm that's just now graduated to compete for and stay in business? Or are they going to drop back into the program because there weren't sufficient contracts, say in that 5 to 10 or 10 to $20 million range? Because our program is going up to $1 million.
Right.
So if you graduate from that, now what's out there for you? You're not going to go from there and bid on our $500 million or $1 billion contracts.
Right. Yeah.
So the graduation point has to make sense, and we're looking at that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I guess you have a complex mechanism that you have to really think about many different things, so that nobody gets hurt at the end of the day.
That's the idea. Again, it's about growing firms, and we don't want to build into our program something that inhibits that growth.
Yeah, economic activity, right? That's how everybody wants to grow, and nobody wants to stay same, or nobody wants to go down.
Right.
That's
exactly.
Yeah. So people like you, or people like your staff, they can be really a big help to firms out there.
And I could, just want to give a plug to my staff because I have some very hard-working people there. We get, say, on the certification side, what you hear frequently is the delay in getting the application out. But these staff are handling a significant volume of applications on a daily basis, and the key there is getting the right people in and keeping the wrong people out. And that's what they're trying to do.
Yep, that is absolutely true. Yeah. So you have compiled any kind of a statistics where you said, okay, you have like 1,000 companies certified, and out of how many companies are getting into some business or anything like that?
I don't have that kind of statistic, but I can say that there are many companies that will come to us for the certification, but they may not necessarily have the skill set to work for the Port Authority. We will certify them anyway.
Right.
And they may go work with another agency because we have these relationships. Right. All the agencies are a little bit different. We have these big airport and bridge tunnel facilities. Another agency, may just be in with buying different supplies or using different professional services.
Right.
So many of our certifications might be for someone who's going to work elsewhere. The ones who are most benefit with the Port Authority are going to be in the construction area and the professional services, the janitorial maintenance. Of that group of janitorial maintenance firms, as I said, I don't know the exact number of contracts. Right now, the last time I looked, it was I think all but maybe one of those janitorial maintenance awards were to someone from that SBE program. So that's a very high rate there. There's some fields, say technology services, where we have a very large number of firms in that database, maybe more than most others. So our percentage of utilization is going to be low there because of the numbers of firms in there, and then the fewer opportunities. So it varies, but I would think ours is probably skewed a little bit on the low side because of the fact that we do these multiple certifications that then they can then do work with other agencies besides the Port Authority.
I'm sure you have any reporting requirement from the primes, right? That they have to report, that they've used this firm and they get paid.
Yes.
You have something like that.
Yeah, we work there with our construction division. They actually will monitor and give us reports on all the different jobs. What we try to look at there is a firm who is, if they're on the contract, we're looking at, as the contract progresses, we're looking at the payments to see that the subcontractors are being paid.
Right.
And if we see that they've reached a certain point in the contract and the subcontractors have not been paid, then that triggers us to go to them and question why, when are you going to bring these people on?
So subcontractor is supposed to report to you, or prime will report that they are?
The prime reports. We're implementing a new system, and I don't think it's up and running right now, but it will be shortly, that will give the subcontractor an opportunity to see that the prime has been paid, and then come to us more quickly to say we didn't get our pay.
Yeah, see, I have suggested a portal where a subcontractor can report from here, primes can report from here, and agencies comes from here, and that way everything is like kind of, you get all true picture. So that subcontractors authorize that I got paid for this.
Yeah, but we're not there yet.
Right.
But that sounds
that's a
like
good idea.
Good approach. Yeah.
Right. Good approach. So let me ask you this now. The Port Authority is divided between New York and New Jersey, 2 states, right? So obviously, you have 2 governors to follow, and you have 2 legislators to follow.
Yes.
How challenging that is for you? Because I know New York has 30% goal. I don't know what New Jersey has goal. What is their goal?
I'm not familiar with the New Jersey goal, but as far as the New York goal is concerned, I mentioned earlier, we fully embrace that. And that's the higher goal. That's the one we're going to try to meet.
Okay.
And I think that will satisfy New York and New Jersey.
Both of them, right? That's a good answer. Yeah. Do you get any kind of a conflict between 2 governors, and do you have to, or you're not involved in that?
At my level, I'm not involved in any conflict. Everything seems to, for my office, work pretty well. In fact, I mentioned we have our partners with New Jersey Transit and New Jersey DOT, and we work very well together.
So the first step, as I recap everything, the first step is the certification. Once you get certified, then you can start marketing to the primes, because that will be the first immediate opportunity. If they already have the contract or they're bidding on the contract, and larger opportunities are in construction side as well as on the janitorial or professional services side.
Yeah, let me just mention a couple of things there, because certification is very important, but there are a couple of other things that the firms have to consider and do if they really want to get work. And one of them is to register their company, which is separate from certification. We have a site, paprocure.com.
Okay.
And a firm goes there and they register themselves. That's where they will identify for the agency or for our procurement department what type of goods and services they provide. So that's key. That's it's equally important to the certification, because the certification alone may not get you a business opportunity. On the professional services side, we have a professional financial services questionnaire that has to be completed if you're going to go on or be solicited for some of the professional service opportunities. So again, if you're an architect, engineer, you have to get the certification, but also complete that questionnaire. And then when the RFPs for those type services go out, you will be solicited. If you haven't done that, questionnaire, you will not be solicited. So it's very, very important. On the construction side, and this is something that will happen automatically, but firms must submit to us, because we pre-qualify, they must submit to us 3 references, a minimum of 3 references. That will get you qualified and will then get you on the construction list. So those are, in addition to the certification, those are 3 very important pieces that need to be done as well.
We had Michael Garner. He is your equivalent to
Yes, I know Michael well.
Right? So we had him also on the show, and I asked him this question, and I'm going to ask you too. That if most of the people who are working in a commercial side, and they're capable, they are very capable, they do good job, but they're afraid of this bureaucracy. What is your answer? That how do you tackle that?
Well, there are things, and I don't. Maybe the fear is well founded, but we do some things to try to help out. I mentioned that on the construction side, there's a small contractors program. One feature I didn't mention is that the contracts or projects that go in there are, I don't remember exactly how they define it, but they are more like a simpler one discipline involved. So there's not a lot of paperwork. So a firm can submit their bid for that and get a pretty quick turnaround on our answer for whether or not they're the winner. Not a lot of paperwork, and that's a key feature of that. And for a small company, in that range that I mentioned, 200,000 rather to $1 million, that's important. That can get the cash flow, and it can get some knowledge of doing work with the agency before jumping out there and getting into one of the more or one of the larger contracts, which then will be a little more complex and burdensome on a small company. The other thing I can say is our staff are very willing to sit down and talk with, and I'm not just talking about staff in my office, but it's frequent that chiefs and directors from some of the business departments, from procurement, from engineering, they're willing to sit down and talk through how to do business with the Port Authority. And I would just encourage firms looking to work with us to take advantage of that. We are a big organization with big bureaucracy and different rules and criteria that have to be followed. So it's not something that somebody jumps into blindly.
Right. Right. No, I one more thing I want to add is this, it's a big dollar sign, because you spend so much money, and if I don't invest my time to get through some of this bureaucracy, then it's my loss. Simple. We have been, we are in IT field, and we have been doing business with the government for almost 25 years out of 29 years in business. So we've been doing business with federal, state, local government, and it's a little in the beginning, it's little, but once you open the faucet, that faucet stays open. You get water all the time in the faucet. You don't really that water doesn't go away. Because a taxpayer will keep on paying money, and you still have to do all this work.
Yeah, and I think it's key. You open the door, you do good work.
Yeah.
And the buyers will remember you when your proposal comes in, and they're evaluating you against someone else. Maybe we don't know them. Maybe it's very close. That works.
Yep. And at the end of the day, everybody needs to get the work done right. Right. If you do the right job, they like you. That's human.
Yeah.
They're going to do business with you.
That's correct.
Right. So really appreciate your insight and your advice for the viewers of this program.
Well, I appreciate again you're inviting me out here, and I hope that what I've given today is valuable to those viewers.
It is, to me, it's definitely valuable. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com, That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/Infosys International. That's again youtube.com/Infosys International. Until next time, have a great week.
Okay. Thank you.